Hi there, my name by birth is Alex William Smith. I'm better known to many people as Jonathan Royal, hypnotist and magician. You can read about my encounters with Rupert Murdoch's former fake Sheikh Mazher Mahmood at circusofthemind.net, where there is evidence galore of his dishonesty and illegal techniques. I'm making this short video on the 21st of July 2022, which is exactly 8 years to the day that the case collapsed in court of Talisa Kontostavlos, the British pop star who is part of the group N-Dubs. Mahmood, pictured on the left of the screen, had accused her of dealing in drugs. The case collapsed when Mahmood was tripped up in lies. This ultimately led to Mahmood down the line getting charged, taken to court, where he was convicted, and he was sentenced to 15 months for conspiracy to pervert the course of justice. He was sentenced to that in 2016, which is interesting when you consider that there is evidence galore that Mahmood drugged people's drinks. It's on circusofthemind.net. His former photographer and right-hand man, Steve Grayson, who was featured in the BBC Panorama documentary in late 2014, has made a statement that you can find there that he witnessed Mahmood drug somebody's drink and boast about using it in his private life as well. Yes, that's right. He drugged many of his victims, which is something Talisa claimed happened to her and her friends, and numerous people have said over the years. There's more information on the many celebrities who say that they believe their drinks were spiked and drugged at circusofthemind.net. What we also know now is that Mahmood hacked people's phones. Indeed, Dr. Evan Harris, former MP and one of the founding people of Hacked Off, the media campaigning group, recently, as can be seen at circusofthemind.net, confirmed that Mazher Mahmood, there is evidence that he hacked numerous people's phones and that he used unlawful information gathering techniques as a matter of course. Now, in my case, which involved alleged counterfeit coins, and I say alleged because they were never sent to the Royal Mint for validation, as is illustrated at circusofthemind.net, so there was no evidence they were actually fake. Further, the coins were retained by Mazher Mahmood for almost 10 days between when I picked them up for him using money he supplied in advance, and I picked them up from a place where his colleagues and team told me to get them from. In other words, they were all the beginning, the middle, and end of the supply chain. He had ordered them for 10 days before they were handed to the police, so there was no continuity of evidence. It's been shown in the case of Emma Morgan, the former pastry girl, as Steve Grayson has confirmed in his statement on the Panorama documentary, that they ultimately paid a person to supply Emma with the drugs. They made it happen. It couldn't have happened otherwise. They broke the law, in other words. There's also evidence on circusofthemind.net that evidence tapes were edited to give a distorted picture, and that other recordings just kind of simply disappeared as if by magic, or the tapes apparently went wrong, conveniently enabling them to make claims that could not be proven or disproven one way or the other. This was raised in many people's cases as a concern. So you may ask, especially with something like the dirty bomb plot, apparent red mercury doesn't even exist. But in this case, that comes from many years ago, in fact, it was circa 2004 that article appeared. That is 10 years before the Talisa trial collapsed. So they carried on relying on Mahmood as a witness of evidence for 10 years after this dirty bomb-foiled article appeared, which led to this in 2006 when the trial. Fake Sheikh was accused of him being the guilty one after the terror plot acquittals. Yes, that's right. In that article, you can see it on screen, but people were cleared because the evidence against them wasn't good enough. And Stephen Solly, the QC defending Mr. Martins, accused Mr. Mahmood of misleading the police, the Crown Prosecution Service and the courts. This was in a court case in 2006 relating to a 2004 article. But they still, after this case in 2006, for another 8 and a bit years, continued relying on Mahmood's evidence, even though they knew he could not be trusted. This wasn't the only time red flags had been raised. Indeed, the posh kidnap plot, which the News of the World were there, they were working with the police, that's why they were able to get the pictures and the photos when the police apprehended them. This appeared on the 3rd of November 2002, as you can see. So the 3rd of November 2022 will be 20 years later. This case ultimately illustrated that Mahmood was accused of setting this up, and he paid £10,000 to one of the people involved. And ultimately, that triggered Scotland Yard's Operation Canopus, an investigation into Mazher Mahmood that took place in October 2005. He was interviewed under caution and asked someone like Gashi, why you use someone like Gashi, who he'd paid 10 grand to. And Mahmood apparently bragged that he had bent coppers that witnesses were informers. That's 2005, okay? 2005. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Another 9 years after that it is before the Talisa trial collapsed. But they carried on relying on Mahmood's evidence, even though they knew from this it had been brought into question in the same way as is underlined there. It was in the earlier dirty bomb plot as well. The 3 men were acquitted in the dirty bomb plot before the trial had even started. And yet they kept relying on him. It's mental. In September 1999, Mahmood was criticised for the way he ensnared the Earl of Hardwicke and his colleague, and the judge actually kind of said he was really critical of it as well. In 1999, again, October 99, Rodri Giggs, brother of footballer Ryan, was arrested, but ultimately he was found not guilty after the prosecution says he cannot rely on taped conversations between him and Mahmood after Rodri's legal team put up objections to the fact bits were missing and they seemed to be edited and messed with. That was in 99. His dishonesty was drawn to a manipulation of evidence in 1999. That's 2000. That's over 15 years before the Talisa case. They knew he couldn't be trusted, but yet they carried on doing so. November 2002, as we said, was the Beckham kidnap plot. 5 men are charged, but the case is thrown out after it is ruled that the paper's informant was an unreliable witness. What? This is mental. And yet they carried on relying on Mahmood's testimony. January 2003, Mahmood apparently resigned after a report. This was in The Guardian, this article. After dumping, you can read it. It says it there. The point being that they knew, the police and the Crown Prosecution Service knew for years. In fact, they knew for a long, long time. In 1988, he left the Sunday Times because of dishonesty, as Roy Greenslade, his boss at the time, mentioned. So he's got a long-term dishonest track record. He lied in the Leveson inquiry, which is illustrated by he said he had more convictions than he had. Again, all that's at circusofthemind.net. From my grounds of appeal that are on circusofthemind.net, I quote that we've got knowledge of evidence that's come up in the phone hacking and privacy intrusion cases in the High Court, which demonstrates that the Metropolitan Police and the Crown Prosecution Service knew that Mazher Mahmood was an untruthful witness back in 1994-95, i.e. before my case, before the case of John Alford, Herbie Hides, and a whole rack of other people, including the Earl of Hardwicke, a whole bunch of other victims, long before the case had ever came to court, relying upon Mahmood as the sole or main witness. The police and CPS both knew that he couldn't be trusted because News Group Newspapers was in possession of police and prosecution documents, we know, identifying Mahmood as having given false evidence in a 1994 court case, showing the police to be reluctant to prosecute further cases based on Mahmood's activities and questioning whether he should be questioned under caution about things. They knew back in 94-95 that he could not be trusted as a witness of truth. This was never disclosed to me or any, as far as I'm aware, any of the other Mazher Mahmood victims prior to or including, it's not even been disclosed by the police and CPS up to the date of recording this, the 21st of July 2022. And yet they've had opportunities to do so because in 2014 they gave us a disclosure pack relating to the Tulisa collapse trial, but it didn't contain anything about the numerous other instances that have been drawn of Mahmood's dishonesty and questioned of his techniques. You'd also do wise to look into the book Who Killed Daniel Morgan. It's the most investigated murder in British history, one where 20 years later, right, well, I'm saying this because in the spring of 2000, anti-corruption cop Bob Quick submitted a report. It came out of the third investigation into the murder of Daniel Morgan. The report named 3 News of the World journalists. One of them was Mazher Mahmood. In 2002, the police again looked at the Daniel Morgan murder, and they did, but that led to them doing the Operation Canopus, and Mahmood bragged in that about bent police officers. It's all mega madness. There I am pictured with John Elford, Herbie Hides and Ebba Morgan in 2016 outside the Old Bailey after Mahmood had been sentenced. The key thing here to remember is on circusofthemind.net, there are documents that make mention of the fact there is evidence from circa 1994-1995 showing that the police and the Crown Prosecution Service knew Mahmood could not be trusted as a witness of truth. They never disclosed that to me or any of the other victims, and yet they carried on relying on Mahmood's evidence despite the fact they knew he could not be trusted. 2022 is the year we are now in. Yes, it is. And the thing is, it took them 28 years from 1994. 94, yeah? 2004, 214, 222. That's 28 years to current date. I was in court in January, 21st of January 2022, as explained at circusofthemind.net. Unfortunately, the Royal Courts of Justice refused my application to appeal out of time my convictions sustained in 1999 from fabricated lies and manipulation by Mahmood, where I was also drugged, and the evidence shows that I was also phone hacked or unlawful information gathering used, and a whole bunch of other dishonesty behind the scenes relating to an article in 1998. That's all fully explained at circusofthemind.net. But the key here is to remember, please remember, they knew in 1994 he couldn't be trusted. They knew back then he could not be trusted.